Force bonds, also referred to as Force chains or Jedi kinships in some tellings, is a link in which two Force-sensitive users can influence each other. The most recognized Force bond being between Bastila and Revan from Knights of the Old Republic in the old expanded universe, though at this time that is no longer canon. We do have canon versions of Force bond still in existence. In Clone Wars we have an example of a Force bond between Dooku and Yoda, but I also believe there's an implied Force bond between Luke and Leia. Force bonds most commonly occur between masters and students, but it is established that not many are truly formed due to Jedi teachings to not form such attachments. And Force bonds are often brought to by passion. They're really strong bonds that allow communication through great distances, allow better battle coordination, and allow each other to borrow upon the other's strengths and abilities, while strengthening the other. Any of this possibly sound familiar when it comes to the context of Force Awakens? I believe so. And it even answers some fans' biggest qualm with the film: how does Rey have such an understanding of the Force without any formal training? To me, it's all but confirmed an inevitable Force bond between our antagonist and our protagonist in this film. And here's why. We can't speak without some speculation, of course, but it seems very heavily implied that Kylo at least has some idea of Rey before their formal meeting. Rey also has visions of Kylo before their paths ever cross, at least in her memory. So when their paths finally do cross, it's mentioned several times in the novel and mentioned in the script, they feel this odd, perhaps unsettling connection with each other. Kylo keeps mentioning this something he feels at least 3 times in the novel. They both recognize a familiar feeling with each other for a brief moment in the script, and even Rey in a way recognizes that she's drawn to him. If you believe the Skywalker theory, which I'm still not completely sold on, you could recognize these feelings as a possible familial bond. If that's the case, why aren't those same feelings mentioned when she meets Leia? You can also argue that they just sense each other's Force sensitivity, but wouldn't you think Kylo would be able to distinguish that? Because he is so absolutely undone and confused of what happened in the interrogation room, undoing years of training. That is the reason why he actually destroys the interrogation room in the novel. In the novelization, he actually senses her escape and knows she won't be there when he goes back. The reason he goes back is because he's looking for clues of what exactly just happened between them. And he's so undone and confused by these emotions that he wrecks the place. Of course, the film is edited in a different way, but I find the novelization version very interesting. But before she can escape, Rey suddenly understands and can perform one of the most difficult Jedi maneuvers, the Jedi mind trick, without ever knowing that it existed. Again, she didn't even know the Jedi were real a day ago. We have yet to know an exact reason why this happened aside from the Force, but a major component in the Force bond is indeed borrowing upon the strengths or abilities of the one that you're bonded with. And it's pretty clear that Kylo's strengths are among the Jedi mind tricks. So it's been pretty heavily hinted at that just perhaps Rey was able to gain knowledge of these abilities through her bond with Kylo, especially given what had just happened between the two when they were in each other's minds in unison. I don't think Kylo's putting on any sort of act in this movie, especially with his emotion when he starts sifting through Rey's mind and brings up how lonely she's been, how afraid she is to leave. These are clearly things he relates to. His understanding only turns sour when he finds out that Rey thinks of Han as a father figure, because obviously Han was not one for him. The line, "Don't be afraid, I feel it too," to me reads in 2 different ways. The first one is to reassure Rey that this is not a pleasant experience for him, which he has a line about in the novel, and that he feels the same pain she does, which sharing pain is another component of the Force bond. The second being that he senses Rey's fear of the connection that they have, and this line is Kylo's way of recognizing and admitting that he senses it too. We can also point out that during many of their scenes together, Kylo seems to be the calmer of the two while Rey seems to be the angry one, which could be a possible illusion on their influence on each other. He's very insistent and intense on becoming her teacher, which again, the bond is usually formed in that dynamic, though not always. But Kylo may sense that this is what his position is supposed to be in this relationship. Force bonds are basically being completely open and vulnerable to the other person. Your thoughts and feelings begin to meld together, and I believe we've already begun to see this happen, even in signs as subtle as the way Rey walks at the end of the lightsaber battle. Shoulders rolled back, arms sticking out a little bit, circling, and the way that she swings her saber, all basically Kylo's signature moves. Even in the symbolism of her outfit change at the end of the movie, we can see the dark side beginning to influence her. If we're taking any symbolism from the prior movies, people who wear darker clothes tend to be fighting more with the dark side. And she is obviously very susceptible to it, as she does heavily rely on anger and fear during her lightsaber battle. But from the outfit change going from primarily white to gray, we are perhaps able to gather some symbolism there, as the stronger of the two tends to be the heavier influencer on a Force bond, which to me the stronger of the two is Kylo at the moment, despite him losing the lightsaber battle, but he was shot, and if he wanted to kill Rey, he could have. But anyway, I find it really interesting and I'd love to see Rey battle the dark side within herself in the upcoming films. Even though J.J. Abrams has talked about this scene a little bit and how It was kind of a mistake. I like using the Force bond as a reason why Leia instinctively goes to Rey over Chewbacca at the end of the movie, which is literally one of my like 3 problems with the film. But Leia admits that she finds herself acting extremely motherly to Rey, and it feels really natural to her. This could be she's a Skywalker evidence, but in the terms of a Force bond, it might be Leia's ability to sense her son through Rey. Also, just for funsies, let's talk about similarities between Bastila and Revan, and Ben and Rey. Bastila and Revan share the most famous Force bond in all of Star Wars history. One of the reasons why it is so unbelievably fascinating is because it results in a love story between the light side and the dark side. Just by the images of the characters themselves, we can instantly see similarities in the characters' silhouettes. Revan very similar to Kylo, and Bastila very similar to Rey. Kylo and Revan both wear masks for symbolic reasons rather than any need to actually wear one. Kylo's lightsaber is canonically based on a design from the KOTOR era. Bastila also wields a double-bladed saber, which adds to the similarities of Rey's weapon, which is a staff. I mean, they both have British accents too, come on. But actually, in terms of the character, I think Rey has more in common with Revan and Bastila more in common with Ben. The fact that Rey establishes that she doesn't remember anything before Jakku may imply that just too much time has passed for her to really remember anything, or that she was potentially mind wiped, just as Revan was. I also suspect if her mind was wiped, it may have something to do with the dark side, but I can't really speak more on that without speculating too much. In Bastila, the light side user at one point gets corrupted by the dark side, and it is Revan's decision in the end either to save her or rejoin the dark side as well. Bastila has a very complicated relationship with her family, having a very less than happy relationship with her mother, especially for giving her away to the Jedi Order and taking her family away from her. The storyline to me echoes the one of Kylo Ren. Bastila also had a gift for the Jedi technique of battle meditation, which without going into it too much, she had an innate ability to go inside other people's heads, which again to me correlates with Kylo Ren. And eventually at one point during the game she is corrupted, and as you play as Revan, your choice to save her or rejoin her in the dark side. While they do share similarities with their gender matches as well, I see more potential similarities in their gender swaps. We're just dropped somewhere else in the timeline. There are a lot of similarities, I just wanted to bring it up to share that KOTOR could possibly influence The Force Awakens. Now, I adore the idea of a Force bond for many reasons. I'm a big fan of fated relationships, be it platonic, familial, or romantic. But yeah, I'm a big fan of these relationships, especially in fairy tales such as Star Wars. I think this would create an absolutely amazing conflict for the characters in the upcoming films, while resulting in an understanding of each other that the audience wouldn't otherwise see. We can see Rey's struggle with the dark side from a new perspective, and Kylo's conflict of feeling any sort of real connection with anyone when he's so desperate to separate himself from them. Rules of a Force bond can obviously change because a lot of it is no longer canon, but I hope they come back into play because I think they are tragically beautiful relationships and would add a character complexity between the antagonist and the protagonist that I'm a huge sucker for. Especially given that if a Force bond is broken, say perhaps by a death of a character, it leaves this other with this painful, heartbreaking hole in their soul, adding a whole new layer to their inevitable rematch. Anyway guys, just a theory, but no matter what, I really look forward to seeing Rey and Kylo's rivalry. Let me know in the comments below what theories you would like to see discussed, or go check out some of my other videos. Thank you so much for sticking with me this far, and as always, may the Force be with you. And then they make out! Classy.